going to take this only because it might like reverb or something. Thank you, boss. Nah, I'm gonna get started. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here. Those conversations will continue, that's fine. So we want to start on time so we can somewhat end on time. We got a lot of seats up in the front, but people sit wherever they want to sit. So first of all, thank you for, thanks so much for coming up. Yeah, thank you, thanks for coming up. I appreciate it, yeah, thanks. You don't have to, it's freedom. So again, thanks so much, I'm Art Haywood. Yeah, thanks so much, I appreciate it. That's all right. You got plenty of seats. I don't know why they moved me all the way back here, but anyway, this is the setup. So I'm Art Haywood, your state senator. I represent from the Willow Grove Mall all the way down to Wayne Junction in Philadelphia. It's about 260,000 people. And I scheduled this town hall initially thinking that the state budget would be done. And I never thought the Phillies championship game would be on tonight. So I understand that's the way it goes. And it was up to me, I'd probably watching the Phillies and the Dodgers as well. But for all those who decided to spend the time, thank you so much. We're gonna have about at least 45 minutes of Q&A, and then we're gonna ask you, if we get to the end of the session, if you have a question that didn't get answered, we're gonna have some Post-its, and you can put the questions up, and we'll get back to the questions. And then also at the end, we're gonna ask you what you can do, what we can do together, and have that on the Post-its as well. So that's basically the basic ground rules. We want to obviously be respectful to each other. Having said that, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what's happening at the state level, the national level, and locally. So at the national level, which is affecting us all, now we have a high level of vigilante violence. Just yesterday, a judge in South Carolina who made a decision that was against the Trump administration, or considered to be against the Trump administration, her home was firebombed. She survived, her family survived, but it went up in flames in a way that had to be arson or firebombing. We know Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. We knew 2 lawmakers in Minnesota were shot and killed. And earlier today, I learned about a legislator in Washington, D.C., who decided to vote against the Charlie Kirk resolution, and his home was thereafter vandalized. So this is the kind of political violence that is in the country today. And it is shaping who is willing to speak and who is not willing to speak for fear of vandalism or firebombing or other kind of vigilante violence. I want you to know that as your state senator, I am not afraid to speak. I will not be, it's not gonna happen. Now, some of you know my wife, Julie, she's involved in a lot of activities in the county, in the township and the county. I did have the conversation with her as well. And so I'm not here out alone. I have my family support. But it has changed, and to see the level of violence today, the political violence, is one that it will have a chilling effect on some, and that's a very challenging situation. Now let me talk a little bit. Somebody got to watch my time because I only want to do no more than 10 minutes. Thanks, 10 minutes, and then we want to make sure we have Q&A time. So big picture on the state. As I said, we hope to have a state budget done. Our budget is due June 30. It's October 6th, and it's not done yet. Now, we do have some divisions that help to explain the state budget situation. So we have some members of the state Senate who want to see flat spending they want to see flat spending. Now, flat spending doesn't work, people, gas is higher, insurance costs go up, people get raises. So there's a cost to making the government work every day that they don't want to cover. There's another structural, or another feature of the state budget, which is why saying we're not going to increase spending is a challenge. About 10 years ago, we decided to decrease taxes on businesses. Of course, those were taxes that were helping to pay for government services. And so now there's been a slow decline, not a rapid decline, a slow decline in revenue coming in from business taxation. So when there's a slow decline coming in for revenue and expenses are level or just slightly going up, then the gap between money coming in and expenses gets bigger. That makes sense? We're on the same page. So this is the core challenge for the state budget, is that we have declining taxation revenue from businesses, and we have some expenses that are basically the same or slightly going up. Now let me describe some of the expenses I'm talking about. The biggest expense in the state budget is nursing home care for those who are in nursing homes. That's our number one budget item. The second biggest is public education, K-12, where the courts have said we're not fairly funding the schools, right? So we got a problem, we got a constitutional problem there. Those are 2/3 of the budget. K-12, nursing homes. These are big parts of the budget. So it's not like we can say we're not going to fund nursing homes. Now, people need care. You can't, that's like ridiculous, right? And the schools are unconstitutionally funded as it is, so if we don't continue to fund them in a responsible way, we're further violating the Constitution. So these are some of the big challenges, and so cuts that have been proposed are primarily around health care. Health care is a big expense. There's some desire to cut access to food for those who are most vulnerable. And of course, that's not generally supported. But the main, other than these individual policies, the main challenge is business tax going down, expenses going up slightly. So this is a long-term challenge. We have the challenge this year, we'll have the challenge next year and in the years to come, because this trend is a long-term trend. Fortunately, we have a governor who helped to save SEPTA and got some funding, one-time funding for SEPTA, just like last year, one-time funding for SEPTA. There is no sustained solution for SEPTA that we have adopted, only one-time funding. The funding that we got this year might last 18 months, some say 24, but it's not long-term sustainable funding, and so we still have to address the SEPTA challenge. Now, I am not a person who's pessimistic. Actually, not at all. So I'm describing challenges that I think we can meet. And I have a very good relationship with many of my Republican colleagues, and hopefully help them to see that we've got to fund the schools. We can't take money away from health care for the most vulnerable, and obviously, we need to support those to get food. So that is the picture in the state. Now, we've had some significant successes in the state while I've been in the Senate. Last year's budget, we got $100 million allocated every year for affordable housing. Now, this is out of real estate transfer tax. You sell your house, transfer tax is what helps pay for that. So I don't want to give you the impression that even though we're in a very bad spot today, that we will be in a bad spot forever. State has done some powerful, good things, and the governor that we have now is a good leader. Now, on the national side, there's some things happening nationally that are having significant effects on the state. The first one is going back to food. So the national government decided that there's a significant paperwork requirements for folks to maintain food stamps, the food assistance. So they'll now have to report they're working, they have to report the hours that they're working, they have to report when they're in school, they have to report volunteering. It is a ton of paperwork. And right now the state is still trying to figure out how they can absorb to get all that paperwork in so folks can maintain their assistance. But the paperwork requirements are enormous. You know, folks you get your paycheck, and then, you know, it goes to the bank, you do whatever you want with your money. But now, those who are working and receiving SNAP, they'll have another form that they have to submit to the state on a weekly basis to let them know that they are working. Most people who are receiving SNAP food assistance, able-bodied, are working. They're already working, but this is just a significant paperwork burden that will, I believe, cause many people to fall through the cracks. These paperwork requirements began September the 1st. Most people do not know. 3 minutes. Thanks for the alert. My office has gone around the state to try to let folks know about these new paperwork requirements so that they can comply. We've had events here in the Philadelphia area. We were in Pottstown. We were in Lancaster. We're going to be in Delaware County to let people know. Also, a threat to the state is the National Guard coming in and taking over local police. We've seen that in Washington, D.C., we've seen it in L.A., we've seen it in Portland, it's threatening Chicago, so we're concerned that it could happen in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. So I have proposed legislation, it's called the Protect Pennsylvania Police Act, and it's basically to leave Pennsylvania police under local control. All communities, we got over 1,000 police departments in Pennsylvania. They're all under local control. That's where they belong, with the residents and the communities that they are in. Hopefully we'll get support for this legislation. I know law enforcement is very much in favor of having local control. They don't want other people coming in trying to address their communities. And I can say, at least in the Philadelphia side of my district, where gun violence was very high in 2021 and 22, gun violence has gone down dramatically. In fact, there's some predictions that this year, gun violence in Philadelphia will be at a 50-year low, a 50-year low. And this is in part because actions of the police, but it's also in part because many community organizations reached out to folks who were high crime individuals in high crime areas and began to help them turn their lives around. And I'm very happy that in the northwest section of Philadelphia that I represent, we've had over a 63% reduction in gun violence. 1 minute, thanks so much, since 2022. Yeah, we're very happy about that. So it's not all doom and gloom. We have some challenging times. We have some fantastic partners. I hope that you can see them or talk to them before you leave. Some are involved with immigration, some children, some career link, helping people get jobs, and also, First Up, which deals with children. These have been partners of mine since I've been in the state Senate, folks who are trying to make sure we have child care, jobs, and more. Last thing I would like to say is I've got some events coming up in which you're all invited. So tomorrow night, we have a two attorneys who will talk about wills and estates. So they'll give you some advice on wills or what to do when you may be in a position where you can't make decisions for yourself, healthcare decisions. This is we've had this consistently, and we always get a lot of people who are interested in this topic. And the second big thing is October is Dignity Month. It's a month where dignity is celebrated throughout the world. We had a fantastic telephone town hall with about 2,000 people talking about dignity, how we can uphold dignity in our own lives. And we're going to have an event at Woodmere Art Museum on the 16th, and another event at Arcadia on the 29th. And I invite you all to attend these conversations. So there's a lot I couldn't discuss, but I figure we'll get Q&A, and then I'm out of time. 7 questions. Let's bring the questions up. Thank you for those who did that. Let me read them. 7, okay. Let's check out the handwriting here. What's the barrier to passing the state budget? Okay, one person got 3 questions. 4. That's okay. So the main barrier to passing the state budget is, so let me just give a background. So you have the governor and the House. The governor's agenda, the governor's a Democrat, the House is led by the Democrats. And you have Senate Republicans who are in the majority in the Senate. So you have some already challenges there when you got 2 parties. As the governor says, we're one of the few states with a divided government. And when he says divided government, he means Republicans and Democrats. So in the state Senate, I have some colleagues who are not willing to increase spending. And the leader of the Republicans has 27 members, and he can only lose 2 votes, or else somebody else will be the leader. Because another guy wants to be leader, right? So these 2 people want to be leaders. So he's having a hard time managing that group of people, which I think would be very difficult. So that is our main challenge, getting Senate Republicans to come to an agreement that we've got to spend money to keep the government operating. So I would say that's my view of it. If you ask my Senate Republican colleagues, they would say we're spending all the money we got available and we have no more money. Now, of course, that means we start cutting fundamental services, which is unacceptable. We do have about $10 billion in a rainy day fund. $10 billion. We got to use use rainy day fund. So that's one source of money that could be used to fill some of the gaps. I'm going to go to another question. How much of the budget problems was health and education due to the federal cuts? So at this point, I would say very little. The National Act was passed July the 2nd. Our budget was due June the 30th. So we were in a position to get the budget passed before the national government did the so-called Beautiful Act. So I would say the federal budget will have much more of an impact on the budget that's due June 30, 2026, as opposed to the one that's overdue. I will say that there are significant challenges from the national budget for our state budget next June, because it's going to add more costs to administer the food stamp program. I think about $200 million. But before I get into that, that's the question. That's the answer to the question. There will be significant impacts on the state budget for June 2026. What is the state of the Pennsylvania economy? So we fortunately live in a rich state. We live in one of the richest states in the nation. We have the natural gas, which is providing gas for the entire nation. We have a tremendous higher education system with state universities, private universities. So we have a rich state. Our unemployment level is pretty low, not the lowest in the region, but fairly low. So I would say our economy is fairly good. Now, it's all, who benefits from it, right? So I mean, the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. That's bad that's terrible for labor. You can do the same job in New Jersey and make $15, right? So that's obviously terrible. But overall, our unemployment rate is low. Oh, I think I answered the question about the prospects for the upcoming budget. The upcoming budget will be very challenging as we incorporate the national changes. Can Governor Shapiro appoint a PA National Guard? So I am a little uncomfortable speaking for the governor. I'm not the governor. At the same time, the governor is for maintaining National Guard authority under him. The National Guard in Pennsylvania is already under the governor, and he's committed to keeping it that way. Now, we know that the president has tried to commandeer the National Guard from cities and states. And so that's a challenge, but currently, our state law requires the governor to consent to using the National Guard. Now, we know the president has done a number of unlawful things. He doesn't necessarily follow the law, so he could try to take over the National Guard without the consent of Governor Shapiro, but Governor Shapiro is for keeping Pennsylvania control over our National Guard. We've got this one is some handwriting that I find very challenging, but I think part of it is about taxing natural gas. That's the fracking. Who asked that question? Okay, what was your first question? I understand we have something issue.
So we have probably a lot of resources being depleted from the state in terms of fracking, but we're not taxing the fracking, and this could be a potential source of revenue to make up for the shortfall.
I agree 100%. So I propose three taxes on natural gas. First in 2015, and we have legislation now to propose a tax on natural gas. And the tax I'm proposing now pretty much follows the framework that Governor Wolf had before he left, his last one. And further context, Pennsylvania is second in natural gas production in the nation. Number 2, some people call us the Saudi Arabia. So I'm on this committee where we study a bunch of things in the state. We got a report that Texas is getting about 10 times the tax revenue from natural gas as we are. So we are really being too friendly to the natural gas. That's if you want to have it in the first place. But since it's here, it should be fairly taxed, and it is not. And my proposal would bring in several $100 million a year, but we still need greater support for it. Essential workers, will child care ever be considered essential workers to be paid? So the ever question, I would not give up on ever. You said a question, will we ever be paid? I think there is a possibility, but we have done a terrible job of paying for child care here in Pennsylvania. We do have legislation to provide an increase, but I gave you the context for our impasse, so I'm not that certain that that will happen. I think that's on the unlikely side. So I wouldn't say it will never be paid reasonably, but it's not in the short term. It's not in the short term. There are tremendous child care advocates across the state here with us today who consistently make the case for child care. Child care is described as the workforce behind the workforce. And it's the workforce behind the workforce is because if people are at home taking care of their children, they cannot get to work. So the workforce behind the workforce is critical. There's no doubt about it. My wife Julie's here. We had child care. We had 3 children, and they were young, and we had child care the entire time, which allowed us to get to work. So it's critical. There is a state budget, but no deal. Will agencies be paid? So I began to receive a number of reports of organizations that are not being paid. I know the school district of Philadelphia took out a huge loan, I think $1 billion loan, in order to pay for ongoing expenses. I was told they have about $30 million interest expense on the loan. We have begun to receive reports from organizations that are providing mental health services and other services. They get money from the counties get money from the state, and they are suffering. So there is an impact. These are not just numbers. People are being affected and will continue to be affected. I've heard reports from around the states of agencies closing. So the state budget impasse is having a current effect on everyday people. The national shutdown will do it as well, particularly for organizations that were getting a combination of state and federal money. And so without those two streams, there are organizations that will lose, and the services that were being provided by those organizations will be diminished or cut off. I have heard about one organization beginning to lay off. This is particularly in Bucks County, but yeah, it's a challenge. Now, I've talked to some of my colleagues about this, about the level of what we call noise, complainers. And in this budget cycle, we have not had a lot of noise or complainers. I received a letter from a number of organizations, but the letters are not the same thing as loud complaints. You see what I'm saying? It's not like people are coming to our offices and say, get the budget down, budget's got to get done. If I don't come out here to just come to the community, I mean, it's not a lot of pressure on us from the public. Now, it's our job, so I know it's not like we should need the pressure, but sometimes the pressure can happen. And so I have seen some legislation, some action happen because of citizen advocacy, and this is one place amongst others where I think it will make a difference. My colleagues in the state Senate, at least the Democratic ones, are all frustrated, they're all angry, they're all disappointed, all of the above. But that's not the same as get the pressure to get the deal done. I will say that I have been very, very fortunate to have the support of so many in this community. And that is why I'm so glad that you all came, but that's also why when I said at the beginning that I will not be silent, one reason I know I don't have to be silent is because we have a community. We may disagree on one thing or another, that's okay, but we can be civil about the disagreements. We're not shooting each other, we're not fighting each other, we're not screaming and hollering at each other. We can disagree and or agree, but I think having a community that is basically civil, it makes such a difference in these times, All right, now, I think I answered the questions about the budgets. That's that one, that's that one. ACA. So ACA is the Affordable Care Act adopted under the Obama administration over a decade ago. When Biden was president, he put in some extra money, subsidies, money to make the health care plans more affordable. And the number of people getting health care in Pennsylvania went up by about 150,000 people as a result of plans being more affordable, which makes sense. If it's more affordable, more people are going to take them. So unfortunately, the national budget, the national scene, is where there's a big question about whether these supports will continue. Our state agency, Penny, has said that they expect, they don't know, but they expect 150,000 people to lose their health insurance if the subsidies go away, because it'll be unaffordable, right? If it's not affordable, you can't do it. This demand to keep the subsidies in place is one of the main reasons that there's a shutdown at the national government, because Democrats are saying we got to keep this subsidy in place so people can keep their health care. And we're going to shut down the government unless we keep it. So I would say the ACA is significantly under threat, because if the plans become unaffordable, if the plans are unaffordable, people are not going to take it. So there's a significant threat. But let me describe something else that's similar. So I talked to you about the paperwork requirements for the SNAP for the food. There's going to be similar paperwork requirements for health care, government subsidized health care. So, not everybody can keep up with all this paper. So folks are going to drop off. If you have private health care insurance and hospitals have more uncompensated care, people go to the hospital, they can't pay, your insurance rates are likely to go up. Because it's not like the hospital is going to absorb all these people who can't pay. That cost has got to be distributed. And so I've seen a number of studies that suggest that the cost of health care for those who are not covered, just everyday people, not on any kind of public assistance, is going to go up. Because somebody's got to pay for this care. Right? It's not like, the care costs money. So there is a great fear that the premiums and the cost of health care for everybody is going to go up as we take away the compensation for care that was previously supported by the national government. And I think that addresses the second part. Will we lose our insurance? And it depends. I think this is going to be more about affordability. So if the costs go up, maybe we'll lose it. So that I can't say. That's pretty much for every family situation. I'll be glad. I think I went through all the questions. If I missed a question, let me know. So, yeah, thanks so much. There's one more question I see I missed, just one moment. Will agencies be paid if there's no state budget? So some agencies will be. Some agencies will be paid without a state budget. For instance, corrections. All the incarceration, the folks who are providing oversight to those who are incarcerated, they are still getting paid, and a number of others. So it's not an across-the-board cut of everything or no pay of everything. So there are some fundamental parts of the government that are still working, like we pay for the judges. The state pays for all the state judges. They're still being paid. Hopefully you don't have to go before a judge, but if you do, they're still there. Go ahead.
You started your remarks speaking about the lack of civility at the federal level. I was wondering if that has cascaded to our state level in any way.
So I would say that in the state legislature, there's a lot of civility in terms of how we treat each other. So I would say that. I think the danger, even nationally or locally, is vigilanteism. And so, it was a vigilante kind of person who shot and killed Kirk, shot and killed the lawmakers in Maryland, blew up the house of the judge in South Carolina. So the vigilanteism is very obviously unpredictable, and we haven't been hit by it except the attempt at assassinating the president. Yeah, trying to burn the governor's house down. So, his mansion down. So we have had the challenge here in Pennsylvania, and it's a concern. I can tell you that when the state lawmakers were shot and killed in Minnesota, it sent a shockwave amongst all state legislators across the country. But I will not be silent. Julie, I did share that my decision not to be silent was not unilateral. I had some that I would ask support. But we're not going to be silenced. Now, hold on a second. Go ahead. Thanks so much.
I'm just wondering, you had suggested that you haven't really been aware of, or your colleagues, of an outcry for the state budget to get resolved, and possibly for you personally and some of your Democratic senators, it's a little bit of preaching to the choir a little bit. So who do you recommend, if we feel strongly about advocating for, indeed, this state budget impasse to end, who do we contact?
Yeah, thanks so much. So, do you live around here? Yes. You live, okay. What town? You would complain to me. It's okay. So let me tell you, I understand what you're saying, but let me walk you through it. I understand, and I appreciate you. Don't think, So this is how complaining to me helps me. I go to the Senate caucus. I say, I was at a town hall last night, and the folks at the town hall said they were going to not do something violent, but they were very upset that we don't have a state budget. And I'm carrying the message that they are angry, angry, angry to my rest of my colleagues so they can hear the anger. So that's one way it's helpful because I may be able to persuade some. Now, the folks who are holding it up are in a jam, right? So the Senate Republican leader, he's got two people who are like, no, no, no. And if he loses two, he's done. However, you're here, you're in Wynmoor. I suggest you contact another state senator in Montgomery County, because it's the same county. That's Tracy Pinnacook. You contact Tracy, tell Tracy, we talked. She's in the majority, she's with the 27, and we need her to get the budget done. And because you're in the same county, you got some affinity. And we can make sure you have Tracy's contact information. Thank you so much. That will be helpful. And that was one of the questions. Oh, Julie Haywood.
Hi. I just wanted to say that in response to your comment that you kind of made a unilateral statement, it wasn't unilateral. I'm totally behind that. We cannot be silenced. I think it's really important if we take a position on different things that are going on. If we do not, that's exactly what the result will be, is that our voices will not be heard. So you're not standing alone. Just wanted you to know.
Yes. I let them know. That's important. You know, one thing about these jobs, you can't do them alone. You might see one person standing out front. It cannot be done alone. Jordan from our office is here. Wallace from our office is here. This is not something you do alone. Even though it's like one person standing up, you know, that's not how it works. You need support. How are we doing on time? If I don't get any more questions, I have a lot more to say. Are there wasteful state agencies that could reduce or eliminate it? Thoughts about waste in SEPTA. So I think that there's waste, some level of waste in every operation, whether it's a private company, especially the big ones, or public. So there is waste in the state, there's waste at Blue Cross, there's waste at PICO. You know, there's some level of waste in these organizations. So I think the answer to that is yes. Now, we're about $1 billion difference in terms of the impasse is about $1 billion. And no one, even Republicans, no one can find or thinks there's $1 billion of waste, right? But there's waste in every organization. I know on the Health and Human Services side, they have a big effort that is in fraud and abuse to try to get rid of fraud. They spend millions of dollars going after people to try to eliminate fraud. So it's a huge effort. It's recognized. But I would say there's always some level of waste in any large organization that's got several thousand people. There's going to be some level of waste. SEPTA. So I talked to the SEPTA general manager. SEPTA's got I think their budget's over $1 billion. There's going to be some waste in an organization that big. I mean, it's impossible not to have some waste in an organization that big. You might go to the SEPTA station and say they shouldn't be doing something you think they should be doing. I understand that. But it's not at the level that's causing them to have a demand for recurring income. I don't know of, or now, before I got into politics, I practiced law for like 30 years, represented a bunch of organizations. I mean, why use that many pencils? I mean, there's going to be some level of waste in any organization. I don't find that the government is the most wasteful organization in our nation. But I would never say there's no waste that I mean, I can't imagine a situation where there's not some waste. In your own family, you know, there's always expenses you could cut, and, well, why they spend money on this, why they spend money on that. So there is some waste, but it's not at a level that is affecting the impasse. So much so that my Republican colleagues are not saying, if we eliminate the waste, we reach a deal. They're not saying that. No one is saying that because there's not that much waste to be discovered. But there's always some level of waste, yeah. Another question, okay, thanks so much. Is there effort to end the property tax, marijuana, and inflation? Okay, that's a lot. So let me start with inflation. So we have a number of causes for inflation, some coming out of COVID, some coming out of tariffs. And so we got a serious inflation challenge. We do have the Federal Reserve trying to manage the inflation to some extent, but I don't see inflation going down anytime soon as the tariffs kick in. You know, tariffs mean things cost more. So I think we continue to have inflation challenge. On marijuana, I do support adult marijuana. I mean, there's a lot of rules, you know, there's a lot of protections we got to have. And the legislation that I have seen includes a lot of, you know, a number of protections. I don't know if you know, we have adult marijuana in Pennsylvania right now. We have it right now when people come from New Jersey. We have it right now when people come from New York. All the states around us have adult marijuana. And they bring it, you know, it comes in and out of the state. So it's not like we don't have adult marijuana in the state. Now, it's not regulated. It's not readily available all across the state. But in Philadelphia, it's, you know, if you're on a border area, marijuana is readily available for adults. As long as we can have some of the standard protections that are in other states, I think we can do adult marijuana. It took us a long time to do medical marijuana. That has worked, and I think we can take the next step as long as we have the proper regulation. Question on property tax. So the question is, can we eliminate property tax? So Governor Wolf, in his first year, had a proposal to eliminate property tax. And it was basically to say, we're going to end property tax, and the money that we were getting from property tax, instead, we would get it from sales tax and income tax. So it was basically a swap. Property tax gone, income tax up, sales tax up. So that trade was unacceptable for the General Assembly. Folks don't want to increase income taxes. Folks don't want to increase sales taxes. There was a little bit more willingness to increase sales tax, but there was no willingness to increase income taxes to make up the difference. So the property tax elimination, excuse me, property tax elimination has not been really a viable proposal unless there's a trade. Property tax done, income tax up. And without the willingness to do both sides of the equation, it's not going to work out. And you can't do one side of the equation with property tax down. This is part of the challenge we have with the business tax. We're reducing business tax in the equation of covering the difference we haven't done. I would like to talk about a couple local issues. SBS. SBS had the big fire. If you drove by, it's almost all demolished. It's not completely demolished, but it's largely demolished. SBS is proposing a new state-of-the-art facility. It's not going to employ as many people because it's going to have a lot of robotics in there. It's going to have a lot of automation in there. But they do plan to bring it back, but it's not going to employ anything like the number of people that was there. It will be state-of-the-art robotics, heavy automation, but some jobs will return, not as many as we may have hoped. Water bills. So if you're in Cheltenham, your water bill is high, or $720. My water bill is through the roof. And Representative Nelson and I tried to get Aqua and the PUC regulates water, to have a gradual increase over many years of the water increases. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. So now we have gone to a much higher rate. It's a rate that's the same in many of the communities around us. We were below that standard rate. Now we're at the standard rate, and it's expensive. But our proposal to make it gradual was not adopted. I do want to say a few other things in terms of the state. The state of Pennsylvania is still committed to inclusion, diversity and inclusion. The State Department of Education is committed to it, and so therefore all the various school districts have maintained their commitment. I'm on the board of state universities, the 14 state universities. We have maintained our commitment so we can have participation and inclusion, which is critical, I think, for a nation that we all be represented and part of. Unfortunately, we had a neighbor who owned a store in Germantown, who's lived in the United States since he was 5 years old. Since he was 5 years old, came from Laos. At age 55, he was detained, and he's now in Moshannon prison. So we've had a number of advocacy for him. We got Congressman Evans to get involved on his behalf. We have Senator Fetterman also advocating on his behalf. And he has not been deported. That's the first step. He has not been deported. And it's in part because of the advocacy that he has not yet been deported. We do hope to be successful and bring him home. But I am very concerned, obviously, with the raids that we see on television that are happening all around the nation, Chicago, and many places in the nation. So as part of my not being silent approach, I and some others are going to have a vigil, mostly religious leaders, on the 13th of October, and we will be doing prayers for the detainees and more at the Philly ICE office. I am convinced that the president's agenda, he's not going to stop. Right? He's in motion. He is not going to stop. And he must be stopped. Not going to stop on his own. So hopefully this kind of raising awareness will help us to get the public support and stop the path that the president is on. So, yeah, I think so. So they say we're out of time. Thank you so much. I am very glad to hear what we can do, what I can do, what we can do together. If you have some ideas, please put them on the Post-it. I don't think I have all the ideas. In fact, I know I don't. Many of the ideas I've advanced, I've heard from other people around the nation. So be very glad to hear what you recommend and put it on a Post-it. We'll organize it and see what we can do in terms of responding. If you want me or someone from my office to get back to you, please put your name and contact, phone number so that we can. You don't have to, but if you want us to get back to you, we need some contact information to do that. I think that's it. Anyone have a question they didn't want to write down, it's just in their head? Go ahead.
With the increase in business tax,
Yes.
do we attract more business to the state?
No, that's not happening. So tax is one of many features that businesses use to locate. One of the biggest features is talent. Can they come to a city or town where they have talent, a workforce to do the job? So that's big. Our business competitiveness is mostly around having talent. That's been the core thing. So the argument was raised that if we lower the taxes, more businesses will come, and those new businesses will pay more tax, right? So that has not happened. Yeah, that equation, that has not been the case in Pennsylvania. I don't know if it's the case in other states, but it's not the case in Pennsylvania. But that was the theory. That was one of the theories of it. Yeah. I would say that we've got the fracking situation, the drillers, which are paying nowhere near what they're paying in other states, Texas, Wyoming, some of these other states. And our revenue from the drillers has not gone up dramatically. Now, some of that's because of the price of natural gas, but we have lost out in that equation.
We also have a lot of not-for-profits with healthcare, education.
We do. Now, if I haven't seen a state-by-state comparison, we have a lot of universities, but there are a number of other states that have a lot of universities. Massachusetts is one. I mean, there are a number that have a lot of universities. I'm thinking of statewide as opposed to this in this township. In this township, we got some serious nonprofits that are not paying. But I would say I need to look at that question. I haven't done the research on the state-by-state comparison. But we have tremendous industries. I mean, agriculture is really the #1 industry in the state, and dairy and beyond is really big. If you like organic food, Pennsylvania is, I think, number 1 or number 2 in terms of producing organic food. So we have some significant advantages. We do. We're not in a poor state. We're in a rich state. Now, being a rich state doesn't mean that we're going to provide more government services, right? I mean, we could say we're a rich state, we're going to do more health care. We're in a rich state, we're going to do more education. And depending upon who's leading the government, those decisions could be made. Yes, sir. Oh, 1, 2.
Yeah, why are businesses not interested in coming to Pennsylvania? And even if there is a decrease in taxes, that means that the current businesses should have more money to be more efficient and increase, somehow increase their productivity. But why would businesses not be interested in coming to Pennsylvania?
So Governor Shapiro's top agenda item, maybe one or number 2, is attracting more businesses. He often compares us to Ohio. And when he does the Ohio comparison, he says, Ohio has sites, economic development sites, locations, big, that the state has helped to fund. And so if you're looking for a site, according to the governor, Ohio is far ahead of us in creating sites for businesses to come from out of state. So he has proposed $500 million to create more of these economic development sites. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll give you an example. 100%. So these are competitive, right? States are competing with each other. We were not doing well, which is why the governor says he wants to create these sites to create the incentive. He's comparing us to Ohio and about 2 other states. He's not trying to do what's happening in Arkansas, but he's looking at some of the states that surround us, what actions they have adopted, policies they have adopted to create the attraction. And he has said clearly we are far behind some of our competing states. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. We are getting some businesses. We're not at zero, so I don't want to get a sense that we are. But the governor is very clear. There's a lot of this competition we haven't won that we have to win.
But the businesses that are here do have the low taxes, correct? So they're able to put money back in, maybe more investment, and hire more people. So that should sort of increase the productivity. That's not happening either.
Should they do that with their money? Yeah. So we can't tell the business owners what to do.
They're not doing it.
Yeah, some are and some are not. I don't want to say none are because that's false. We got SBS getting ready to they're putting a big investment here in Abington. So I don't want to say none are, but in the competition, according to the governor, we are falling behind. Yes, sir.
Well, I really appreciated your comments about resisting our current whatever. We have a No King's Day coming up this month. What can we do and what will our representatives, you, Nelson, do to help promote the No King's Day and help our communities resist this lawlessness that we see going on at the national and state level?
So thank you for that question. I think it's important that we do resist. Me being here is resistance. I think that the House members have some different rules about what they can promote and what they cannot promote than the Senate. So I'm not sure what Nelson and those people can do because they operate in a bunch of different rules, I understand. We do share these events and let people know. For me, my most significant event is going to be the vigil. And we anticipate having weekly vigils, not just one event. It's got to be sustained over time. If we get the support, we will do that. I think other ways to resist is just to be willing to speak, because there's an effort to chill speech, to stop all dissent. And so your willingness to come to this meeting is positive. It's a small act of resistance given the climate that we're in, but it is part of it. Beyond the No Kings demonstration, the other way that people can make their voices heard is through the elections. And obviously we're here because of an election, and so we can get out of it through elections. So I'm a big advocate for voting because that's largely why we have the president that we have. Beyond that, I have encouraged people to join organizations that are doing advocacy that fit your passion. So if your passion is for children, join Children First. They're doing a lot of advocacy. And many of these organizations are doing state and local and national. This will allow you to come out of the lane of solo, the solo lane, to group organizing. There's the immigrant advocacy group here. If you're concerned about immigrants, I encourage you to join that organization. If you're concerned about fracking, there's Penn Environment. They're doing advocacy, or Sierra Club. I mean, there are a number of organizations. because combining our individual efforts with organizations that are doing advocacy is critical. We are not going to be able to resolve this or win the struggle by complaining about what's happening on television. In fact, I encourage you to read the news more so than watch the news. That's why I read the news as opposed to watch it, so I can get a deeper understanding. But I would encourage you to join an organization that's advocating for something that's important to you. Yes, ma'am. This is going to be our last question. Thanks so much.
So I, probably like a lot of my neighbors, we got the flyer with the misinformation about voting no to retain the judges. Will there ever be a time that something like that is illegal, to influence the voters with such blatant misinformation and lies?
Yeah, so that's very unfortunate. I have seen the same false mailer. And that false mailer is going around the Commonwealth. So deep, intentional misinformation. So this is very dangerous. There may be some litigation related to that flyer to try to stop it. There's been some conversations about litigation to stop the distribution. That's already out, but at least to stop the distribution. You can't recall it, it's already out. So I'm not sure if there will be litigation or not, but that is being considered. What we have to do is call it out. We have to call it out. I have seen a few newspaper articles saying that it's false, but as many neighbors as you can tell, please do it. As many neighbors as you can tell, please do it. There's so many mischaracterizations out there in terms of these judges. I can't get partisan. One is term limits. This is not partisan, this is about a fact. So the Supreme Court does not have term limits in that you can be reelected. That's what retention is about, is being reelected. And if you decide that some people are not elected, that's not a term limit, that's just defeating them in an individual election. So I have seen the characterization, let's end the term limits, or let's have term limits so on all these judges. But in this instance, it's just about defeating folks who are up for election. There is no legislation to create term limits for these judges that has passed. So that's a deep mischaracterization. I've seen, there's a lot of mischaracterizations. I do encourage people to vote for whoever you want to vote for in this upcoming election. But there's a lot, it's unfortunate the level of deceit that we have in this election. Thank you all so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And please see any of the folks who have come out here, spent their time. They are advocates. They are interested in what you are about. And please stop by those tables on the way out and be safe.